Welcome back to another episode of Branching Out with Sierra. Today we're on episode 6, Lead, Laugh, Learn, exploring the lighter side of leadership with Jay Foreman. If you recall in a previous episode, I was talking about the Wheel of Life, which I have made up of 8 different components that make up both our personal and professional life. And one of those components is fun and rec. And so when I was thinking about how we can integrate fun into leadership, the very first person I thought of was Jay Foreman. So I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to my guest today. Jay is a John Maxwell-certified leadership trainer with a master's degree in executive leadership. He's also an accomplished public speaker and professional member of the National Speakers Association. His clients have included business leaders, associations, nonprofits, schools, and churches. Jay is an award-winning author of 18 books and works part-time as an adjunct instructor at Laurel Ridge Community College, teaching leadership courses. Jay also enjoys visiting schools, elementary through college, and conducting writing workshops with students. He has been featured on TV, radio, newspaper, podcasts, and magazines, and I'm so blessed to have you here today, Jay. Thank you for being here.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. This is my all-time new favorite podcast to listen to. So now to actually be on it, I'm so excited.
Oh, I'm so excited too. I was excited when you said yes.
Well, thanks for having me here.
So I'm just going to ask you some questions today that incorporate some of the fun into leadership, but also talk a little bit about what you've chosen to do in your career and what has brought you to where you are today. So I wanted to start with, could you share when you first identified yourself as a leader and what that moment was like for you?
Sure. And I'll preface it by saying I didn't identify it at the time. It's one of these things later in life. I looked back and said, okay, I think this may have been the defining moment. Now that I understand somewhat what leadership is, when I think I really first tried it on, so to speak. This was back in the early 90s. I was in college. I was at Radford University, and I was pledging a fraternity. So at Kappa Sig, I was one of the pledges. So anybody that's not familiar with Greek life, when you're a pledge, you're kind of at the brother's mercy. They treat you poorly. You have to do anything they ask, and it's for a whole semester, right? Mm-hmm. Your way of getting into the fraternity. So our pledge class, there were about 7 or 8 of us, and we had a pledge president, which was not me. Somebody else had the title. And we were probably about a month in, and they were abusing us every chance they had. Stuff like they would call us up at 2 a.m. and say, hey, you have 10 minutes to get over to my house. And we'd have to be over there. Then they'd say, hey, can you get me a Coke out of the fridge? And that was it. And we'd go back and go to sleep. But this is before cell phones, right? So we had to be at our houses. I think it was like a 10 o'clock curfew to 6 the next morning, so they could get hold of us when they needed to. So there was a big party going on about 20 minutes away at Virginia Tech. And I said, guys, I pulled all the pledges aside, and I said, look, they're running us ragged. This is going to get worse before it gets better. Let's all take a night off. This was not allowed, by the way. So I said, let's take a night off. Let's all pile in a truck and head over the mountain to Virginia Tech and just party it up one night. Hopefully nobody will call for us, but if they do, hey, we'll deal with that another time. And our pledge president said, no, absolutely not. This is against the rules. We're not allowed to do this. And very politely, because I like the guy, I just pled my case. And I said, guys, we're working hard. We should play hard. And I painted the vision. I said, here's why. I started with why, right? Here's why we should be doing this. And as we know now through John Maxwell, leadership is influence. I was able to influence everybody, including the pledge president, to say, you know what, you're right. For one night, let's head over the mountain and just go party it up, and we'll deal with consequences if there are any. So there were, of course, consequences. We got back, and they were looking for us all night. So they called us all. We were all in trouble. We went there. And looking back now, I think there's so many layers to this onion here. You'll love this with all the leadership tidbits here. So that was the first piece, was the influence. But then they called us together and they said, okay, why did you guys do this? Who did this? And I stepped forward. I figured I wasn't the most responsible guy at the time, but I figured this was my idea. I'll take the bullet for this one. I said, guys, this was my fault. I drove us there. They wanted to come back, but I had the car keys, so this is all on me. Yeah. And then this is brilliant. I love this to this day. It's a lesson in leadership. The rest of the Pledge Brothers said, no, it was Jay's idea, but we all were in agreement. So there was that buy-in, right? We know that term now in leadership. They all bought in, and they said, hey, we're going to have fun. We're also going to deal with the consequences together through this. So they, and here's one more piece to this puzzle here, which is so brilliant on their end. The fraternity president who handed down the punishment to us took us all out on the field on one of the hottest days, and they just made everybody do push-ups and sit-ups and hit-ems and everything until you threw up or you just dropped of exhaustion. That was our punishment for everybody except me. They pulled up a lawn chair and gave me a cold beer and put me in the shade, and I had to sit there and watch my Pledge Brothers do this.
That is painful.
It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. But looking back now on it was painful at the time. I hated going through that. I even hate telling the story. It was so awful. But looking back now, it's one of those things, you have to love your people. You have to love the people you're leading and doing life with. And it did, and it hurt. And these other guys knew this, and they put me through that to say, think before you maybe run these guys through something next time. It would have been different if we all paid the consequence together. But in real life, people are on different levels sometimes. There's different consequences for the same action. And so I've never forgotten that. And I think twice before I risk something. I consider the reward and also consider the consequences and how they may vary for other people.
Wow, that's a really powerful story. There's so many different things. You say it's like layers of an onion. There are so many things I could touch on. But it also made me think of, the 5 levels of leadership and how they chose to follow you, not because you held a specific title or a specific role, but they trusted you, they believed in you, they thought that you were making a good decision at the time, right? Yeah. And they chose to follow you. So I think that's really cool too. What a great lesson. So I heard you mention at the beginning that now that you better understand leadership, you're able to look back and identify that's when you had influence, right?
Yes.
But prior to exploring leadership, getting your master's in executive leadership and truly exploring it, would you have known that you were a leader?
No. Back then, not at all. And that's part of leadership now is having that retrospective, looking back, okay, what did I learn from this? And I'm a big proponent of every situation in life, the good, the bad, the ugly. We can take something away and learn from this and better ourselves and those around us from just simple retrospection every day.
And that's why we get along so well, because I believe the same. I do. So thinking back, what was your first memory of having a significant impact on someone else's life? So at this point, it was a lesson for you. It was a lesson for them, right? But let's take it a step further. Is there another time in life where you felt like you truly used your leadership skills, maybe not intentionally, but you did, to impact someone else's life?
Yeah, these are great questions, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was actually right about the same time as this, probably about a year or two separated from the story I just shared with you.
Okay.
I was coming home from college in the summers and working just summer jobs, right? And one year I worked hanging insulation all summer. So one of the toughest, hardest jobs. Yes, yeah. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I can say I did it, but it's on the resume now. So hung insulation one summer with a bunch of guys. And it was a rough crew. I love these guys. We got along great. But about a month into it, I'm there for about 3 months in the summer, right?
Okay.
And about a month into it, you go on the different crews, different guys every day, different jobs. And I started hearing a little bit of scuttlebutt. People weren't happy with their job. They were underappreciated, underpaid. And then it got to the point where they were more and more starting to talk and say, you know what, we all just have to band together and quit. One massive quitting. We'll quit, or we'll ask them to pay us X amount dollars more an hour, or we're all walking, right? And I was like, I don't know, guys. I said, I'm just summer help, but I didn't want to not be part of the guys. So we were all working on a big crew one day, and they said, at the end of the day, we're all going to go in there, and that's it. We're going to give them the ultimatum. I was like, guys, in my mind, I was like, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't need this job. I'm going to be gone in three months, but 2 months at that point. But this is your guys' livelihood here. Think this through before you do anything with this. So we were talking that morning. I said, look, I'll band with you guys. If this is what you want, I'll walk in and give my notice with you guys. But do me a favor. Let me talk to you today. Throughout the day while we work, I'm not going to hold us up. And if I can convince one or two of you not to do this or to pump the brakes, can we all agree that we won't do this today? And they said, okay, right? And they're kind of standoffish, but I was talking to them a little bit. Well, what don't you like about this? Why are you doing this? But here is the question, and I use this to this day. I didn't really know this was a leadership technique then, but it's very powerful, and you may use it in your travels too. I asked them, I said, guys, one-on-one when we talked, I said, guys, on a scale from 1 to 10, how bad is it to work for this organization? And the answers varied, but they would inevitably say, oh, it's a 4 or it's a 3, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. And then the answer, my reply to that would be, if they say, well, this is a 4, I'd say, really? So why isn't it a 3? Why isn't it a 2 or a 1? And what that does is it forces them to say something positive about the organization. Well, your benefits here, what do you think? Oh, that's a 3. Well, why isn't it a 2? Well, I have a buddy who has it a little bit worse than me. And they started to rationalize and say, you know what, maybe it's not as bad as we thought. Maybe this merits having a conversation with management before we walk in with an ultimatum. So I convinced, influenced the influencers. I convinced 3 of the gang there that were kind of the godfathers of the group to say, let's just pump the brakes. It may not be as bad as we think. Let's just talk this through. And I left 2 months later. Everybody was still working there and moving forward. So again, that's a retrospective thing. I didn't think much of it at the time.
Yeah. Because
it really, at the time I was young and immature. I was like, it's not going to affect me either way. But I just feel like my spidey sense was tingling. I don't think this is the right thing for everybody right now.
Yeah. Wow. So I'm curious if any of those people you still know, are in contact with. Have you spoken to any of them since then?
I haven't. I haven't seen them since they all took me out my last day of the summer, but I haven't seen any of them ever since. I'm hoping they're all still there and happy. And
yeah, well, I'm just thinking about it's so often that people have an impact on our lives, and unless you're intentional about slowing things down, stopping, and telling the person what a positive impact they had, they might never know, right? And I thought it'd be really cool to get their perspective looking back at that moment and what it looked like from their perspective and how you helped them to make a decision that maybe kept them in a position where they were able to move up and grow with the company. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I think that it would have been really cool to know how it looked on their end.
Well, I'll line them up as guests for your future podcast.
Yeah, there you go. We'll have a panel discussion.
Yes.
It's a great idea. Also, I have to say, as soon as you said insulation, I started itching a little bit. I couldn't help but think about getting in my Tyvek suit that I used to get in the attic and deal with my insulation.
Yes.
That's not an easy job in the heat of the summer.
Yeah, you had to wear, I didn't realize it when I signed up for the job, you have to wear long sleeves and 100-degree heat. And then the worst part was, come back at the end of the day, you have to take a scalding hot shower just to open up your pores to rub out the fiberglass. Nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad I did it though. Met some good guys there, so it was all good.
I love it. So you've already tapped into some of the amazing, as you said, leadership tidbits, right? But you and I have something in common, and that's our Maxwell leadership certification.
Yes.
I know we both have a lot of respect for John Maxwell. So I'm just curious for you how the training through John has really impacted your leadership principles that you kind of live by, that you teach, your views on leadership in your own personal development.
Yeah, I did I don't know about you, I did a lot of research before I decided which way I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to get a leadership certification, and there's a lot of good ones out there, a lot of big names out there that offer theirs up. So I was doing all of my research on that, but John Maxwell was the one that kept coming to the forefront, and for 2 main reasons.
Okay.
The first is he really didn't shy away from his Christian values, and I appreciated that. I liked that a lot. The other one was every other one that I looked at and almost pulled the trigger on. I had maybe a top 5, and I'm like, okay, it's going to be one of these 5 I'm going to go hopefully get certified with. But John Maxwell was the only one that wasn't completely scripted. Everybody else had theirs and said, okay, pay us your money, pass the class, here's your book. You don't veer off script.
Yeah.
And John Maxwell, as you know, is the exact opposite. He said, I'll give you everything you need. Here's the principles, right? Here's what works. But unless you make it yours, unless you put your personality into this, you're not going to influence anybody, right? You're just going to be regurgitating what somebody else has said, and that doesn't really connect with or resonate with other people. So I loved that. Here's the principles. Tell your stories, put your personality in, and really impact other people. So those are the two main things that got me excited about that and that I've been able to use with it.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that, because I was not exposed to a ton of others before I was exposed to John Maxwell. And actually, his program came recommended to me by my friend Larry Moss. And it was at the time when I was on bed rest and I didn't know what I was going to do when I left education. And so it was basically given to me on a platter, and you should really do this. And at the time, honestly, I was at a place where I would listen to anyone if they give me a direction to go in. I didn't know what to do next. So I feel very blessed to have been put in contact with folks on the John Maxwell team. But what you said about that, making it your own, I love how, and I remember first hearing him say this, that we are the legs to his legacy, and that we're supposed to carry on these principles, these values, but then make them our own.
Yes.
And you're right. The content that they gave us definitely in the beginning gave me the confidence to get started. Right. But beyond that, I know we were talking about before we got on here. Are you still listening in on the videos? We still have access to all of this content, but I feel like we've kind of put our own stamp on it at this point, and we make things our own. You are known for, all the stories that you incorporate into your leadership engagements. If you ask anyone out in the community, it's always, he tells the best stories, right? Because it's relatable. Even like your story about insulation, I'm like, I'm there with you. I'm in the heat. I'm itching. I'm in my Tyvek suit. But I think that, as well as incorporating his, faith into it, that's another thing I was trying to figure out and navigate when I started my business, and I wanted to share my core values on my website and what they mean to me and turn them into actionable behaviors. And there was this really weird hesitation of, if I put faith on there, will people that don't have the same beliefs as me choose to not work with me because I have faith on my website?
Right.
And, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
it's a real
thing. I decided, I don't care. I don't care, because you can have faith in whatever you want to have faith in. But I love that he was just as confident to share and incorporate scripture even into some of his teachings.
Right. And I love the fact you brought up that by doing the way he rolls it out, we can make it our own. Because I heard a great phrase a while back that said, borrowed beliefs have no power. That
like
really
that.
Resonated with me. So the more that we use our stories or our personalities and make them our own, we really have more buy-in as presenters for these type of things.
Yeah, I do like that. That one's going to
It's
have
good,
to
right?
stick for
It's
me.
a bumper sticker.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so it's time to talk about fun a little bit. I was going to say, not that we're not having fun already, but let's talk about fun and leadership, because it's usually not the first thing you hear about.
Right.
Right. I often hear what challenges people are facing, and to jump from the challenge that they're having right now to let's incorporate some fun is a bit of a jump, right? A little bit of a stretch.
Most people feel like it's an oxymoron.
Yeah, exactly. So I am curious how you believe that leaders can incorporate fun into a workplace environment while maintaining professionalism.
Yeah, I think it's simple. It's take the work that we do seriously, but don't take ourselves seriously.
Okay.
And I know it sounds kind of very high level and fluffy, but that's the bottom line. Take what we do. So we're here to do a job. We're here for a reason. We're here for a purpose. Make sure the bottom line is being taken care of, but at the same time, we don't need to get too caught up in our titles or how people look at us or things of that nature. It's okay to have fun, and it's okay. And fun is also, I understand that fun is very subjective.
Yeah.
So I think a big part of that for leaders is getting to know their team, getting to know their clients, getting to know whoever that audience is that they're leading, that they're having an impact on, and giving them the freedom to understand, hey, it's one thing to say, we're going to have fun here today, everybody.
It's forced fun.
Yes, you're not smiling. What's wrong with you? But to understand, okay, your definition of fun might be different than my definition of fun, right? And just to understand that people have different varying degrees of this, and to give them the freedom to go out make mistakes, express themselves, enjoy what they're doing there. Hold on to things just a little bit loosely.
Yeah, I like that. So my version of fun, now that we're talking about it, let's see how ours are different. I love competition.
Why doesn't this surprise me about you?
I am so competitive. And that has always been fun to me. Maybe it's because I grew up with 2 older brothers, and we're still in competition today. So just so you know, we haven't grown out of that. But I'm curious as to how you think competition can fit into the workplace. Is it possible to fit competition into the workplace? I know I always say when it comes to my business that I'm collaborative. I love collaborating with other people. I'm not competing with other leadership folks in the community, right? I love working with you. We're not in competition. I love collaborating with you.
Yes.
But I also love competing outside of this. And a lot of times the competition is with myself. How am I getting better each day?
It's a good competition.
What did I do last month in comparison to this month? But there's some other competition in there. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on competition in the workplace.
I love it. It needs to be there.
Okay.
And of course, I'm going to bring up now how we met.
Yeah,
go
ahead. Go ahead.
Well, for those who don't know, Sierra and I, sometimes what we do overlaps with the services that we offer. So this is, I guess, a couple years ago now. Mm-hmm. Just throughout we put out proposals and things like that. And now and then I'm starting to get beat out for jobs by Sierra, and then maybe once in a blue moon I would take one from her. And here Sierra was the better leader than I was here. Sierra calls me up out of the blue and says, we need to meet. We need to talk. So we're canceling each other out on these things. And she was. We both know there's a big enough piece of the pie for everybody here. So we went out. We went to Bonnie Blue, right? And you got coffee and breakfast and talked about that. And it was one of these organic conversations, just, not like an interview, but it was not like I never got the sense that we were trying to feel one another out, right? And try to, where's the weakness here we can prey on. It was a very cordial, organic, so what do you do? When did you get into this? And almost life story. I think we spent a couple hours there talking. But the point I'm getting to here, it was great because we left there saying, okay, what commonalities are there? What do we both share with leadership? We're both Maxwell. We have all that. But then where do we differentiate, right? So now I can go out there, and we left, and I hope you've gotten business because I've given you referral a lot. When I go out there and somebody says, hey, can you talk to us about creative communication? Absolutely. Can you do a DISC assessment? No, but I know a person, right? And I can refer them to you. And I love that competition. That's competition and collaboration, the way I look at it. But it also makes us connectors. That's one of the greatest things we can be, because when I don't offer DISC training like you do, I'm not certified in that like you do, but when somebody asks, hey, we need this, and I'm able to give them your name and contact information, that paints me in a good light too, because hey, I know a person that does this and does it well, and I'm very comfortable referring you with that. So so that's kind of the competition and collaboration. I think we need them. We need them both.
We do need them both, and I love that story. I was just trying to think back, because we have met at several other locations since then. I was trying to trace back to the exact first one.
Yes, that was the beginning.
But we recently had a little bit of a competition, and you beat me out on it.
Well, it depends how you look at it. It depends how you look at it. Are you going to share the story?
Well, you share it, Jay.
Well, okay, Sierra, again, this shows you her competitive nature. We have the Winchester Star Awards, and it's every different industry, every different occupation, and it's the best of, kind of like superlatives, right? So somebody nominated Sierra for best, was it professional services?
It was under professional services, and coaching. It was under coaching,
okay. So Sierra was the only one. You have to be nominated by somebody, right? So already a feather in her cap there. She gets nominated by somebody in our community, and she's the only one out there running. So she's going to run away with this thing and win this thing. But because of Sierra's competitive nature, she doesn't want to win. For me, I'd be like, hey, don't. When are we shutting down registration? I want this all to myself. But Sierra didn't want to win just being the only competitor. So Sierra goes out there. She lets me know after the fact. She goes and nominates me. So now Sierra and I are both running for this Star Award. So here's where it gets a little convoluted here. We decide we both want to take the high road and out leadership each other here. So we both go on social media on different times and say, hey, honored to be nominated, or for instance, I went on and said, honored to be nominated, but hey, Sierra deserves this. She has done X, Y, Z in the community. List goes on and on. Anybody, any of my friends or followers out there on social media, please go vote for Sierra. So Sierra does the same thing and returns a favor to me. So long story short, and this is a very philosophical debate here. So here's who has the most leadership here.
Here's our debate. You guys can vote online. I'll put up a poll.
Yes, I don't think my ego will be able to handle that. So I end up winning somehow. So now here's the thing, though. I won. That means that Sierra has more influence than I do on all the different people that we reached out to on social media, because people listened to her. They obviously did not listen to me. So when it's all said and done,
I don't know.
I like to call it a friendly tie.
I think it is a tie.
I know the competitor you was saying no.
No, it is a tie, and I was very happy. If someone else was going to win, it needed to be you. So yeah, I definitely see you as the winner there. But you're right. It was a good opportunity for us to show that though we do the same thing in the community in general, right?
Yeah.
People could see, I wanted people to vote for you. That would be the best thing you could do to support me, is support my friend. Right? And vice versa. And that meant a lot to me, by the way. And you are the winner, and I felt blessed to come number 2 to you. So I just love that. But back to competition in the workplace. I'm just gonna throw a random one at you, because I've been in a lot of different settings where maybe it's a sales team and there's a competitive spirit there when it comes to numbers and selling, right?
Yeah.
And so I've seen it done where they're working as a team to reach a specific goal, versus we have a leaderboard and we're now comparing our team members to one another. What are your thoughts on that? How would you handle that if you were working with an organization that's trying to involve competition, but do it in a way that's truly motivating everybody?
Yeah. A lot of different schools of thought on this. Personally, I like the first way that you were talking about, when everybody works as a team and helps build each other up. Because what typically happens when it's 5 different people, and say you have the stereotypical bar graph here, who's getting the most done.
Yeah.
Pretty soon somebody's going to fall behind enough that they're going to give up, right? And then the next person, once they realize, hey, I'm not going to catch this person here, they're going to start to quit a little bit here. And you start dying off by that until one person is going to run away with this, and one person is doing, again, it's the old, rule, 80% of the work, and everybody else is doing 20% of the work. But studies have shown, especially when you look at different restaurants now, restaurants have different philosophies depending on which one you're at. Some of them, every wait staff keeps their own tips. Okay. Then other restaurants, everybody pulls their tips at the end of the night, right? And you can argue both sides of that coin, because somebody can say, hey, I can coast because hey, I'm the worst waiter in the world, I'm lazy, but Sierra kills it every time, and I know I'm going to get part of her share. But what they're finding is, though, overall it's working, and even the wait staff are agreeing and saying, we like this better, because it's if you're in the weeds, you can tell as an old wait staff, I know all the terminology. So if you're in the weeds, if you're busy, I have no problem running over and helping you, whereas before, I'm taking care of me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I like the philosophy. I think there's a lot to that, of working collaboratively versus too competitively. But again, it depends who you talk to. There's pros and cons, just like in everything else.
It's funny because when I do the DISC assessment, DISC and EQ, there's a section in there that measures 12 common workplace behaviors, and basically from greatest strength to those areas that aren't naturally a strength for you, and you don't necessarily need to develop in them either. It's just to help us see how does it align with your current role. But competitiveness is one of the 12, and it's always interesting to me to see how people respond when I'm like, so what does it look like for you to be competitive in the workplace? There's always this hesitation of, am I allowed to say that I'm trying to kick my partner's butt over here? Right. What can I say right now? Some people really don't like competition at all, and it's very uncomfortable for them. Yeah. Whether it's because they fear that it's going to make them look bad, right? Right. Or whatever it may be. So I think it fits into what you said earlier about getting to know your people and knowing what truly motivates them, what they enjoy, because every team could have a completely different sort of competition setup based on how those folks are wired. Yeah, and I'll take you one step further. You have to be careful how you're going to reward people that win these competitions too, because it's a great point. I've seen firsthand some people would be like,
hey, I got the parking spot right up front. This is fantastic. Then other people say, oh my gosh, please, if I win this, come talk to me by myself.
Yes.
I don't want a spotlight at all. And
write me a little note, shove it in my box.
And we never discuss this again.
Yeah, exactly. It made me think of this. Back when I was teaching in Fairfax County, we had this notebook, a journal that started the very first day of the school year, just blank composition notebook. And what we would do was we would try to notice someone doing something good, and we'd write a note to them. And then we put it in their mailbox in the office, and they'd receive it randomly one day and like, oh my gosh, someone's acknowledging me. And then their job is to look for something good. Like that silent gratitude for what you're doing. I see you, right?
Yes.
That is preferable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I want to pull in disc so bad. I'd be like, but my high eyes, they love to be the center of attention.
What's funny, you got me, and reel me in if I'm going down a rabbit trail here.
No,
but
you're
you got
fine.
me thinking about just the different random things in the workplace. When I worked at Freddie Mac years and years ago in McLean, Virginia, we had a manager at one point, and there was about maybe 15, 18 people in our group at that point. And at the end of every day, before you went home that day, you had to email the boss, here's one mistake I made today.
Oh, wow.
And it didn't have to be work related.
Yeah.
It could be, I went out and cut in front of somebody in line getting lunch at McDonald's. I didn't mean to, but just any kind of mistake that you made that day. And the next morning, by the time any of us got to work, he had taken all of 18 of those anonymously and listed them all in a blast email to everybody. He said, here's 18 mistakes that were made yesterday, and it's okay. We're all still here. We're all still moving forward. These mistakes are okay. These mistakes should never be made again. Look, the one you made, you learn from everybody else's mistakes. So every day, here's another mistake. And a lot of people, I tell the story sometimes when people are like, that's too anal. That's too
I don't think it's too anal.
we would run like a fine oil machine better and better every day. I thought it was brilliant.
I think it's brilliant too, because I would be terrified to make the same mistake as someone else that they'd already made. I'm like, well, that one's out.
Then you think twice. You're like, well, before I do this, did I read this last week somewhere? So it was great.
I think that's a great idea. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so switching gears a little bit from the fun in the workplace side of things, right? I always want to kind of weave in the personal side as well. So delving into family dynamics.
Yes.
Okay. For busy families, infusing fun into daily life can be a bit of a challenge. So I'm curious, because you are a fun guy. I can't help it. As soon as I say that, the teacher in me is thinking of mushrooms.
Oh. Where's the rim shot here?
You are a fun guy, so I know that you have tips on how families can bring enjoyment into routine interactions, things that just happen in everyday life. How can we make life more fun, Jay? Help us out.
Well, it's funny you talk about families, and thank you for calling me a fun guy. That is, you will never hear one of my kids calling me that, right? So the family's a completely different dynamic to be dealing with when introducing fun into the family. But I guess to keep it simple, the advice I would give to that for keeping fun within the family is to don't try to force things. Don't always have an agenda. Hey, tonight's family board night. Tonight's family movie night. Don't force things on the family, especially your kids, right?
Yeah.
At whatever age, I've learned. But also be present.
Yeah.
Just be there. And I know there's been, and I've learned this, the hard way through all the years when they're really little to they're both grown up now. But I remember, like, for example, looking back saying, hey, it's game night. Do you want Monopoly or do you want Stratego, the old games, the board games? And they'd be like, no, we'd rather play Heads Up on the iPad. Right? Just different I would rather play Stratego, but they want to do this, I'll do this with them, right? Because it's more important just be with the family and have the fun come more organically that way. Or movie night, hey, I'm notorious. I always want to watch a comedy from the 80s, and they don't want to watch it, so they want to watch something, new and not my cup of tea most of the time. But you know what? Yes, let's watch that, because the bottom line, we're together, and something's going to happen. Somebody's going to say something. We're going to have fun, and then, let's be honest. When we try to make memories, I think we find they rarely happen. The best memories we have are the ones that just pop up.
Yeah,
we never see coming, but it's just, this is the moment, right? So just be present. Don't have an agenda all the time, but just be there for them.
I feel like you're preaching to me because I have an agenda all the time.
So, hi, and you're coming out again.
I need to be taking notes. Yeah. No, this is actually a challenge I've always had. So going back to my wheel of life that I designed, every quarter I rate myself on my level of satisfaction in each area of life. Okay, wow. Talk about anal, but okay, it helps me to literally see as a full picture where I stand, what needs my attention, and consistently, as long as I can remember, the fun and rec category has been struggling because I am so driven when it comes to my career that I pour myself into that, right? And like right now, my focus is building up professional growth, right? Financial well-being is a category I'm really working on right now to get secure. Yeah. And then the fun falls, to the side every time. So I'm trying to figure out ways to incorporate fun into, that's why I ask things that I'm doing on a regular basis, or if I'm trying to focus on my health, if I'm going on a walk, bring the family with me. Right. How can you incorporate it without really thinking about it? But yeah, I always have an agenda, Jay. Yeah,
I know. No, but it's and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But a lot of times it's not. Again, having the agenda. You see where we're going here. Now I have an agenda to jam fun into my schedule somewhere.
I can be purposeful with that.
Yeah. But see, a lot of times, and it just doesn't work some of the times that I've found. Like you're talking about, financial freedom. I'm trying to get better here. That's stressful. I don't care who you are or what you're doing. That's stressful to plan out, here's the money I need for retirement, for this, for that, the other.
We need money for retirement? Yeah. Oh, man, I haven't thought about that.
But it's a whole separate thing. I mean, for us to say, this is stressful, but also, you know what, I want to put some fun on this financial planning now. For me, it doesn't always work. Yeah. So, and I sometimes compartmentalize it and say, okay, I have to go. I'm going to spend a couple hours here making sure all my ducks in a row, talking to my financial planner, all these type of things. But then once and it's stressful, it's not fun, it's a necessary evil. But when that's done, you know what? Maybe I'll go, call a friend up and go get a drink somewhere and unwind. I'll put some fun on the back end of that. Yes. So it's not necessarily incorporated it into that activity. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel. When I'm done this, I'm going to go do something fun.
Like when I was in college and I had to read all this material and I didn't want to read, at the end of every chapter, I'd have a Skittle.
Yes, that's a real thing.
Book.
Yeah, that's a real thing. That's
read to earn the Skittle.
Yes, yeah. It's called the gummy bear method. I've heard it done with gummy bears before. Yeah, that works. One on every page.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Well, that is a real reward, every page. No, thank you for sharing that. That's very helpful. So one of the things that I think you must find fun, because you've incorporated a lot of time into it, 18 books. Are you trying to be the next John Maxwell? That's what I'm wondering. Yes. Because John, for those of you that don't know, John's written over 100 books. I don't know the exact number today. I think he was in the 120s last time I checked. But over here, we have Jay at 18, written 18 books.
Now it sounds like nothing compared to 120.
Oh, stop. Oh, did I make you feel bad about yourself?
Yes, thank you.
I don't think he got started writing until late in life.
Oh, so I have time.
I think you have time. Okay, yeah, good, you're still young. So
I haven't been called that in a long time.
You've written a lot of children's books.
Yes.
Which I think is amazing, being a former teacher and all. And you have very creatively included leadership lessons into your children's books, just making the learning subtle. Right? So it's woven in there, but it's impactful. So what I'm curious about is what inspired you to take this approach when writing your children's books, and what has been the response to that over the years?
Yeah, well, once we start studying, like got John Maxwell-certified, once we start studying leadership, you realize it's everywhere. It's not a box that okay, I'm going to work today, so I get to be a leader, but it's your whole life, right? It can be your whole identity, and it should be to varying degrees. So I started thinking about that, and I'm like, gosh, I never really remember, like we talked earlier, leadership I started really concentrating on later in life. I started thinking, why aren't we teaching leadership at a young age? I mean, we concentrate on the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s and spelling and math, and as we should, and the cognitive learning. But why not throw in some life skills and some leadership skills and communication skills that are just going to help set these young folks up for a more impactful life when they get older? So that was really the driving force behind that. And I try to do it in a subtle way where a elementary school student can sit down and read this book and maybe not soak it in the first time, just have fun with the craziness of it. But then maybe after a second or third reading, maybe take something else away from it, and also something for the parents that are reading the stories to their kids to take away as well. So I mean, that's the thing about leadership lessons. They can be for any age.
I love that. I mean, that's the whole purpose of this podcast, too. Not just every age, but everybody in all walks of life. Yeah. Leadership applies to you. And that's why we're doing this. So I love that you said that. So the second half of that is, how have people responded to it? Are people picking up on the lessons? Are they commenting on them to you? Has it become obvious?
Yeah, these things are selling like whatever the opposite of hotcakes are. No, it's it's fun. It's fun when you hear the best compliment I can get is sometimes when somebody compares it to an old Disney movie, a Disney cartoon. When the parent says, "Hey, our kids get something out of this, and we get something out of this." And when they reach a certain age, they're going to get what we're getting out of this, right? And then pass this on, hopefully, to a younger sibling, which it continues on from there. So that's the fun of it. But I think the other part you asked me about which
response?
Book has been the response, and which book that I've enjoyed with that.
Which book has been your favorite one that you've written? I'm curious. And then what leadership lesson did you specifically convey through that book? My favorite was there's two separate ones. Am I allowed to have two different answers? I can skip it. I can consolidate. Yeah, you can do it.
Okay. I'll talk fast for the first one then. My favorite book of all time is one called Our Thing.
Okay.
And it's a book I wrote years and years and years ago. It's about a father and a daughter trying to come together to find their thing, hence the name of the story. They want to find something to do together. And every scene that they try to do something and the dad gets beat up, he gets lit on fire they try to grill steaks together. They try to get a puppy and the dog bites him in the butt. So all these different things happen. But the beauty of it is, and at the end they find out that their thing was making a book together. And the beauty of that was my daughter is the one that illustrated the book. So at the end you get to the end and you're like, this is our thing. We found to do together. And we encourage other parents and children, find your thing that's out there to do together.
I'm touched by this.
That was a fun one. That was.
Oh, I love it.
We put it out, and I remember saying, even if this thing never sells one copy, this was worth it because Kayla and I will have this for the rest of our lives together.
Yeah.
So that was my favorite one.
Okay.
So as far as I think the best received leadership lesson, it was actually the latest children's book that I've written a couple years ago called Greetings from Camp Wefawasa.
Yeah, it's on my bookshelf. I read it all the time.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I didn't see it out here with all your other Maxwell books.
No, it's at home. It's at home. It's on the nightstand.
Nice,
Jay.
Nice. So yeah, in that one, I took an old Simon Sinek philosophy. It's the lens that we look at things through. I love the old Simon Sinek story where the two guys finish running a 5K race, and then they see a stand where they're giving away free donuts, and the one guy says, "Oh my gosh, look, free donuts." Mm-hmm. And the other, his friend, says, "Oh, are you kidding me? Look how long that line is." One scene, same scenario, but two completely different perspectives on that. One person sees the long line, one person sees the free donuts. So that's what I did. The whole book reads as a brochure to a summer camp. And in everything, the words paint one story, and then the illustration paints something completely different.
Yes.
Right. So it's like, come, have fun with the wildlife, and it paints this pretty picture in words. Then the picture is like a mountain lion dragging a guy out of his cabin, right? In a fun way, not a scary way. And it's just something like that on each one. And at the end, it says the kids reading it and talk to a counselor, say, "I don't get this." He said, "You make it sound fun, but it doesn't look like it is." And he said, "It's perspective based." I don't use that word in the story for kids, but it's how we view it. Are we going to look for the positive in life, or are we going to look for the negative? Because you and I both know whatever we look for, we're going to find.
You're exactly right. And I think that is a perfect connection to fun, because we can make everything fun, or we can find the negative in every moment.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
How can we turn this into fun?
Exactly.
I love that book personally. So
thank you.
And then the hour thing, it's funny you just said that, because with my dad, I celebrated Father's Day with him a week late this year because he was out of town on Father's Day, and we played music together. So I played guitar, he played fiddle, which he learned fiddle during the pandemic, and I'm so impressed by him. It blows my mind how good he has gotten. But it was so cool because after I got home from our day of playing together, and by the way, it hurts to play guitar for a long period of time. My fingers were killing me. He messaged me and said, I hope this can be, and then he put in quotes, our thing.
No.
He did.
Oh, man.
Right? So you were saying that. I'm like,
you're not going to get you a book now to give to him and say, our thing. Oh, wow. That's cool.
You better listen to this.
That's right. That's right. Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah. So I guess we found our thing.
Yeah. And that's been you talked about response from people. That's probably been one of the best things is when I hear from somebody that I don't even know that writes into the website and saying, hey, here's our thing. And then they'll send a picture that the kid did of something that them doing together, like running a marathon or not a marathon, running a race somewhere, or just doing something, or volunteering at their school for field day. And we've had people send us real pictures and stuff. So that is that's you feel like, hey, it's not about the money. It's about, hey, if there's some kind of an impact here, great.
You do a lot of reading because I stalk you online, and
well, now it's not stalking if you're telling me.
I am a top fan now on the page.
I'm one of your top fans too, though.
Yeah,
it's reciprocal.
I hear that.
Yep.
But I noticed that you post what you're reading, which is so cool, and I'm curious, where do you fit reading into your day? Do you read daily?
Yes.
What does it look like for you?
It's typically at night.
Okay.
Because in the morning I try to get in. You try to fit everything in there. I know you talk about balance some too. Well, I'm sure we'll get to that at some point. But I just try to get the physical aspect in the morning, work throughout the day, and then reading at night.
Okay.
And I've learned that I've forced myself. It's so easy, especially for me, just to watch TV. So instead, I make sure I get at least an hour of reading in.
That is so cool. And you sometimes read children's books, which
I
love too.
Absolutely.
Well, I was a teacher, so I have a good excuse to have tons of children's books around, right?
They're great.
I think so too. And you don't have to think a lot sometimes because I'm exhausted. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I do not read at night. That would be awful. It would just, within one page, my face would be in the book, or the book would be on my face. I have to do any reading first thing in the morning. So if it doesn't happen in the morning, something throws off my morning, it doesn't happen that day, which stinks.
Yeah. But we all know what works for us.
Exactly. And I hope, folks that are listening are thinking about if reading is something you've gotten away from. I talked to someone yesterday. She's 3 weeks into her retirement and adjusting to what is life now, right? And she said, I've read 2 books in 3 weeks. I haven't read in years.
Yeah, it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
To finish a book, oh my gosh. Well, and I kind of fell into the trap, and I know I'm looking around at all your vast library in here. I fell into the trap for the past probably 10 years. All I read were John Maxwell books, Simon Sinek, the leadership books, the how-to books. And they're great. Don't get me wrong. It's part of our industry.
Yeah.
We need to stay ahead of these things, and they're great life lessons. But just in the past year, I've started reading just fiction books again. I started reading the classics, Treasure Island, Great Gatsby, and it's opened up a whole new world. I forgot what I was missing.
Yeah.
So I don't even think you need to be reading the leadership books. Just any kind of reading helps.
I agree. Because sometimes I feel like I've reached maximum saturation in my brain, and I cannot process any more information. I need a little break from it. So I think that's a great idea.
Let me veg out on something completely nonsensical for a while and reset.
So segueing from that, and you touched on the word balance, you have managed to fit fun into your career, which is great. You're doing something you love. It is evident, the passion that you have for it. But when I talk about the wheel of life, I want people to try and achieve balance in their wheel. And by the way, what you don't know, when you walked in today, you said, I watched all of the episodes except the one that dropped today. The one that dropped today is the one on the wheel of life. So you'll have to report back on your thoughts.
I will.
But when people actually do the exercise and shade in and rate themselves, it creates a wheel, and either your wheel's going to roll or it's a flat. Okay?
I like
and
this.
So it's a really great visual representation of these things are looking really great in life right now, but these need my attention. I need to build them out. So when I talk about balance in the wheel of life, it is not balance based on I'm spending the exact amount of time here as here. I'm spending just as much time with my family as I'm spending at work. That's not balance in my mind.
Okay.
Because obviously we have different priorities based on what phase of life we're in and what our goals are. So I'm curious for you, is it possible to achieve balance in life? Do you believe it's possible, number one? And if so, what does it look like for you?
Well, now that you prefaced it with all that, my answer's completely out the window now.
Oh, no.
No, let me...
Tell me what you would have said.
Originally, had you not given me that fantastic setup there with explaining what you meant by that, my initial gut response is no.
Okay.
There's not balance.
Okay.
But then now after you said that, I'm like, what she's saying is making sense now. Because I agree, it depends on what season of life we're in. I think... At the end of our lives, I think if we're lying on our deathbed, we can look back, and if you were able to quantify it, I think we may be able to say, I think there was some sense of balance here. But day to day, it's hard because you touched on the season of life that we're in. If all of a sudden, if I'm trying to work on a new certification or something, most of my day is going to be, the chunk's going to be work, right?
Yeah.
Or if we're getting ready to go on vacation, or if we're on vacation, family is taking up most of the time. If I'm getting ready for a Bible study, the spiritual side is going to take, the faith side is going to take care. So maybe at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, they balance out, but it just depends on where we are. I think it's more important to focus on what do we need to accomplish today. And I'm big on breaking things into day by day. It's one of the reasons that you've probably seen more and more companies are shying away from 20-year, 15-year strategic plans.
Yeah.
They said, that's great. We can plan something, but based on us doing this in the past, we're nowhere ever near where we think we're going to be when we get to that. Truett Cathy was one of the ones that started this from Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Saying, if we concentrate too far out in the future on what we're going to do, we're going to miss the great stuff that's happening right under our noses today.
Yeah.
So balance it. It's hard. It's I think it's just depends on where you are, what you're trying to accomplish, but I think we need to reset that and refocus every day. I think we hit the reset button and say, where do I want to focus today? And maybe go back, like you were talking about, looking at things in retrospect. Maybe go back and look. And I like going back about every month. I look back and say, it's amazing when you look back and say, where did I spend all my time? And also, who are the different people that came into my life? And what have I learned from them? Or have I been able to offer them anything? And you really start looking at things, and after you start looking at these chunks 1 quarter at a time or 1 month at a time, you start seeing a beautiful picture start to take place. That is our lives. It's just we just need to take a look at it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. So I use the full focus planner system, and man, there are so many different components that I could talk about, but one of the things is a daily win, selecting that daily win at the end of every day, writing down, what is that accomplishment? Some days it's survival, but
that's a win by itself.
Instead of just writing it on that page, now I have one page in the back where I write all of them, so I can skim an entire quarter at a time at the end of the quarter and look at all the amazing things that I accomplished or could celebrate from that quarter.
Yeah.
And it really does change your perspective, because it's very easy, like especially when I was dealing with health issues, I could have focused 100% on, I don't feel well, I don't have energy, I have muscle atrophy, I can't run like I used to, I can't do this, I can't do that, right? But if I focus on the daily wins, I was making forward progress, yes. I was like diving deep into leadership development. I was training under John Maxwell and watching videos every day. And you know what I mean? So there were so many different things that I could gain. So yeah, it was every day there was something that could be identified. And it does make me feel better too, knowing like when people say, so what are you doing tomorrow? I'm like, I have no idea. I've been 100% focused on today. I can't see past it. My calendar will tell you.
Yes.
I look at it at the end of the day and I'm like, oh yeah, that is what I'm doing tomorrow.
Focus on the here and now. And it's great too, because most of us are visual learners.
Yeah.
So for us to be able to go back and see and actually look and read, here's what happened today or here's what happened last month. I love the story. It's the same concept of when Jerry Seinfeld was starting out before he got his big break in his TV show, and he was a stand-up comic in New York. He would write, he said, if I don't hone my craft, if I don't do something every day to get better, I'm never going to succeed to where I want to be. So he had a big wall calendar he would hang in his apartment, and he said, I'm going to at least sit down for at least 20 minutes a day and write jokes. If I don't do this, I'm not honing my craft. And when he was done his 20 minutes, he had a big red magic marker, and he put a big X on that day.
Wow.
And he said it would get to the point where he was so obsessive compulsive about this, he couldn't stand to have an empty
break in it.
It had to be continual red X's. And he said, I would come home at night dead tired, just ready to go to bed, but I know that's going to be empty there tomorrow. It would force me to do it. And at the end of the day, that kind of consistency, got it done for him.
Okay, and for the Collins family, you wonder why I love Jay. He's referencing Jerry Seinfeld, so it all makes sense why I hang out with Jay now.
Yes,
way to pull in Jerry.
You got to pull in the Seinfeld.
That's great. So there is a streak tracker, is what it's called, in the planner that I use.
Okay.
And any habit goals that you're trying to set. If I'm trying to eat this year, I'm trying to eat 3 meals a day every day. You can literally...
Wait, hold on. You have to force... Okay.
Yes. Well, that's balance.
I have my day planned around 3 meals. I can't wait to get to the next meal each day. Oh,
yes, this is true. I do get a little consumed by work sometimes. I'm working on it.
Okay.
But it does allow you to track it, and then you don't want to break the streak, is the point.
Yes.
And so over a 3-month period, the idea is if you've done it consistently for those 3 months, hopefully you don't have to carry it over to the next quarter to track, because it has now become a habit for you. And now I eat 3 meals a day, Jay, and I don't think about it.
I love it. When's the last time you
skipped one?
Yeah.
Last year.
Last year?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Good for you.
I've been doing great this year.
Wow.
Yeah, you should be proud of me.
Man, yeah. I'm eating 5 or 6, just overachieved now.
Okay, so I want to know what future projects you have going on that you're excited about, or a specific piece of advice that you want to give for people to maybe try and incorporate a strategy or tip you have into their life. Let's look ahead. What are you looking forward to, and what can folks apply from our conversing today?
Are you looking for this to be leadership related?
It can be anything.
You make it so easy.
It can be anything.
One thing I'm looking forward to, I've written a book called The Adventures of Mulberry Manor.
Really? I had no idea.
I have the picture of you reading it with your mom at the beach.
My mom asked me today, this is no joke, she knew you were coming in here today. She said, is there going to be another one for this year's beach trip? Because we're leaving for the beach in August, and she wanted to know if we were going to have a second one, so no pressure.
So I have that book out, and my son just graduated college, and he has a film degree now, so he has a bunch of lofty goals. And I know he understands he has to start on the bottom and work his way up. But one of the things he's doing is he has the skill set and the ability now. He's taking that novel and turning it into a screenplay, and then using some of the connections he has to pitch it to a production company. So, knock on wood, that would be fantastic to keep it in the family and have that get pitched and turned into either a streaming show on Netflix or somewhere, or a movie. So that's pie in the sky type deal, but it's one of the things that's in motion there. And besides that, just continuing to get leadership courses out there.
Yeah,
so
that is amazing. And I came to his event, and your son, that blew my mind. By the way, I was sobbing.
Oh, thank you. That's
sobbing.
The highest praise he could get for that.
Yeah, it was extremely impactful. And actually, I have a horrible memory. But when I got in the car and I was driving home, I called Matthew and I wanted to explain to him what happened in the movie, right? I remembered every single detail. I can't explain to you how different it is than like normal life, but I knew every moment. I could explain everybody's facial reaction, their expressions, their feelings, what they were saying. I've never been able to do that before, but I was pulled in that much by that film.
I won't pass it on to him. I'll make sure he listens to this podcast
and
hear it straight from you. Thank you for
Exactly.
that. But to answer you the second part of that question, what advice would I have for anybody out there looking to hone any leadership skills? I just came across this not too long ago and put it in one of their presentations. 3-pronged: show up, include others, and be passionate.
Okay.
I mean, you incorporate those 3 things.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the first comes from a Cal Ripken book I read not too long ago called "Just Show Up." Right.
Okay.
Just be there. Like we mentioned earlier with the families, be present. Right. You don't always have to. And I know you we're both this way a little bit, you more so than me, a perfectionist. You have to have this ready to go. And there is something to that, trust me. But a lot of times it's just being there. So it's being there in the moment and including others. My gosh, that's what in the world we live in right now, as divisive as things are, when you look out and intentionally include other people and bring them along. Even ask them, what are your thoughts on this? An open-ended question. It opens up some trust and a door that it's hard to close these days, and people are looking for that. And the last one, just be passionate. Don't do anything halfway. Don't straddle the fence. Be all in or don't do it at all. And not doing it at all is okay if you're not going to be all in for this. That's the only way to make things memorable and impactful.
Yeah. Oh, I love that advice. And I'm visualizing, I saw you doing the 3-prong, and then I saw your face like, am I not supposed to beat on the table?
Yes,
is this going to mess up?
I was waiting to get an angry look from Matt over
on
here.
On the intercom, stop touching the table.
Yes. Call myself halfway through.
The passion piece, it's when I go into these different organizations, I love meeting one-on-one with people to hear their passion for what they're doing.
Yeah.
But it is so evident, the people who are no longer passionate, they're no longer motivated to be there. And the best advice I can give them is to let's figure out what brings you joy and how that aligns with your skill set, so we can get you in a place where you want to be.
Yes.
Because that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, then the last question I have for you. Are you ready?
This has flown by. I feel like we started a minute ago.
I know, it is flying by. I want to consistently ask folks about this because, as you know, lifelong learning is very important to me as well, not just leadership. So it's all about continuous learning and growth, and I like thinking about at the end of every day, what have I learned today? Right? Or what have I learned recently that I had no idea? And sometimes I learn things that I think I probably should have known a long time ago. But I'm curious for you, what is something new that you've learned recently, or a new skill set that you're currently developing and intentionally trying to grow in? Let's talk about growth in your life.
Yeah, this, I have a big one for me. It was a huge blind spot, and it's, again, one of those things where it happened a while back, or it happened several times. It's been building, but I had to see it in retrospect to really understand where it was coming from. And that is to try to be more of a person of impact and less of a person of impression. And I'll explain what that means. Impact over impression. For example, we both teach some classes at Laurel Ridge.
Yes.
Right? We both teach some leadership classes there. And when I started doing that, you talk about being a perfectionist, I was consumed with the surveys at the end, the forms that they filled.
Am I not supposed to be consumed by that? Because I got a 4.86 yesterday.
I knew you were going to throw this on my face somehow. No, you also got a perfect score one time, didn't
once.
you? See, I knew I shouldn't have brought this. I want to feel even worse about myself
Go ahead.
now.
I was just confessing that I read yesterday that I got a 4.86, and it did break my heart.
Because it wasn't a 5. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm so glad. I'm so glad our OCD is the same here with this, because you could have 30 people in your class give you a 5-star review, 5 out of 5, and that one person might give you a 3.5. I am focused on that person. The rest of the day, they're anonymous, right? The rest of the day, I'm like, oh, I think I knew who that person was. They didn't laugh at my last joke, right? And you're, instead of, why are we like that? Why? And I'm not saying you and I, but also other people
us.
too.
Why are we?
why aren't we? Again, we talked about that lens earlier. How are we going to look at this, the negative or the positive? Why don't we concentrate on? There's 30 people that enjoyed this and took something away, thought enough to give us 5 out of 5. But that one person, why didn't they love me? Right? Why didn't I win them over? What could I have done differently? And we focus on that. And I'm learning. Well, before I tell you what I'm learning here, I'll give you one better, make you feel a little bit better about yourself. Okay. When I first started working at Laurel Ridge, I saw something came up one day, and somebody got Instructor of the Year for Workforce Solutions. And at that point, I'm like, okay, here's the competitive name. I said, you know what? I'm going to be the Person of the Year. I'm going to be Workforce Solutions Teacher of the Year. So I started taking on everything they sent me. Somebody would drop out last minute, I'm in. I taught accounting. I'm the worst. There's a reason I'm not in banking anymore. But I taught
But you
accounting.
were in banking. You were in banking because Laurel Ridge would not have had you teach accounting if you didn't know what you're talking about.
I don't know, but it was accounting. I literally went out, and true story, and I've told they know this. I've told the story. Now I'm not telling anything. This isn't a late breaking gossip thing on your podcast. But I went out and I said, I'll teach this, right? Because again, I'm trying to get in their good graces. I didn't really care so much about accounting, but I wanted to get this Instructor of the Year. I went out to Books A Million and bought Accounting for Dummies and Accounting 101, and marked them up, read them over the weekend, and came and taught that class on Monday. It was nuts, right? But and I did all this stuff, and I'm teaching every class, and I'm teaching to the survey, right? I don't even know if I'm giving them my best, but I just want to make sure that they love me, right? They're going to give me a good review. So then about 6 months in, I'm talking to Larry Baker, one of our bosses there, and I said, hey, and I just wanted to bring it up nonchalantly. I said, hey, so how does this instructor of the year work?
You did not ask, Jay.
Yeah, I did. But I tried to make it very vague, like, I don't care, I'm just curious. I saw the sign. And he's like, what? He goes, what are you talking about? I said, instructor of the year. I saw where this young lady had got there. He goes, oh my gosh, that's like 5 years ago. We quit doing that a long time ago.
Oh, no.
So I am breaking my back for 6 months, doing everything I can. I'm putting all my eggs in one basket, and I'm concentrating on something that doesn't even, not that it doesn't even matter, it doesn't even exist, right? So I'm doing that. So all that to say, that's how much, I was eaten up by that. But I've just started to I learned it a while back. Leadership and popularity don't always go together. They rarely ever do.
Yeah.
And not to go down a rabbit trail here, but also it was a great lesson I learned in humility serving in public office here locally. That was, not everybody's going to like you, and that's okay. And I'm finally becoming peaceful with that. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to concentrate on the 30 in that class, and the one. You know what? I'm not their cup of tea, and that's okay. And unless I did say, and I'll still look at it and say, did I do something? Did I hurt somebody's feelings? That I didn't mean to. Did I say something I shouldn't have? I'll still reflect there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm not going to beat myself up over something. It may just be a personality conflict. So it's just I would rather concentrate on having an impact on folks, and not. I'd rather them take away a leadership trait and forget who Jay Foreman ever was. And before I almost had that flipped. And I know that's very selfish, but I'm just.
Yeah, no.
That's what I've learned here, and I'm working on.
Honestly, it was also, I think it's the high I, which does care a lot about what people think of them. It's that popularity piece, so the high I and disc. Well, you didn't know this, but I have slowly switched to focusing less on the numbers, and I'm reading the comments for specifics as to, like, if they said something in the written portion of what I could improve or what they appreciate about what I did. I find that part more meaningful, and I'm trying to focus less on the numbers. So I'm headed in the right direction.
So you're qualitative over quantitative there.
Exactly. But I do go into every single thing I do with the intention of, that's what I said about this podcast. If I had one person for each episode, one person that it impacted positively, then it was worth it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's that same mindset of, okay, well, not everybody's going to like this podcast.
What?
Not everybody's going to think we're entertaining, Jay. Which, by the way, let's pause on that real quick, because I can't ever end this podcast without letting you talk about your podcast.
Oh,
so go ahead, do your shameless plug.
Well, but before I get there, can I just tell you, I want to share one of the best or the worst, however you want to say it, comment that I got on one of my surveys. And I know exactly who it was. Now, she told me afterwards. It was this young girl, and she wrote on the comment card. She gave me a decent. It wasn't a 5, but it was like a 4 or something. And she put, "This dude loves to tell stories from the 1980s." That was her comment on the card.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
you should be proud of that.
I want to write back and say you're welcome.
Yeah, I know. Like, this is
the
a
best
compliment,
decade
right?
ever. So yes, I just wanted to share. Did you have any funny ones like that?
No, actually, this is the one I got yesterday. I don't have a great memory, so I know I've had funny ones, but I can remember yesterday. Yesterday, I was a little offended by this. I'm not going to lie.
This will be good.
Someone wrote that they wanted to have fewer activities. And I was like, hold on. Never in my life when I've been teaching has someone asked for fewer activities or exercises, because, you get bored just sitting there listening to someone speak the whole time. So they wanted fewer activities and less networking. I'm like, are they calling it networking when they're doing small group work? So I've really been thinking about that, and I'm like, all right, so there are people in some of these classes that don't love when I allow them to do little projects and stuff in class.
Well, you know what I take away from that, and first hearing this, that they enjoy your speaking part, your presentation so much.
Look at you.
See, there's the glass half full, right? That, honest to goodness, that's what I took away from that.
All right. Well,
So,
that was
I've
the
never
interesting
gotten.
one for
I usually
this.
get more activities, less talking.
That's why we need to balance each other out.
I know. So I know what's wrapping up my podcast. It's called Slice of Life. I do it with a gentleman named Rich Weller. He's one of the craziest dudes in the world. He's another local guy. And unlike this podcast, you're not going to take any nuggets of wisdom away. You don't learn anything.
True.
This is two dudes. We reminisce, we tell old stories
80s.
And lessons we learned. Yeah, mine for get it. Oh yeah,
stories.
yeah. I know who's not listening to this podcast. That girl that left me the note. I tell stories from the '80s. Rich tells stories from the '70s. We try to tie in some life lessons with it, but it's really just a trip down memory lane. And we only do ours once a month at this point, but we're having a good time. It's called Slice of Life. We're on all the different outlets out there. So thanks for allowing the cheap plug there.
Yes, I love it. I've been listening. I think you're recording episode 4 this weekend.
We are, man. You're good. Yes, tomorrow morning. I'm back in the studio.
See, I know what's going on.
Although if folks could, take a look, see what I'm seeing right now. I know they get the stills of it. This is an impressive studio. I was telling Sierra earlier, I'm looking at this right now. I'm just thinking about Rich and I recording our next episode tomorrow. It's literally 2 microphones set on the bar in my basement, and the 2 of us sitting there talking. This is like the real deal.
But I think that's so cool and authentic and real too. Yeah, it's good. But
Sure.
if you ever want to upgrade, we have talked about the fact that we're going to let other people use this. People rent spaces here.
That's
so
true.
if somebody wants to come in and use it, actually, Matthew has done all of this. By the way, I just plop down in the chair and talk for 45 minutes. He does everything else.
Props to give Matthew his flowers here. This is nice. This is impressive.
But anyway, I have seen a couple of people who've come in here and said that they'd want to use it. So I think he's thinking about getting some curtains and stuff to cover up, the SLC stuff, and we could decorate it however folks want, and they can use the space as well.
I love
so
it.
if you ever want to get out of the basement,
yes, we have options now. I love it.
No mold or mildew, This is a healthy environment for you.
How dirty do you think my house is?
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, so you are intentionally growing in your focus on having an impact rather than it being the attention is on you.
Yes.
And everybody loves Jay. Although everybody does love Jay. So I'm just saying. Okay, it's the time for me to do, I typically give a branching out challenge.
Yes, I'm familiar with it.
So today's challenge obviously is going to have to fit in with fun, but your challenge is going to be different, just so you know, because you're sitting here with me. We have to do the Wheel of Life together and shade it in. I kind of want to see what yours looks like.
I'm scared it's going to be flat now. After hearing all this.
Everybody's is it starts out a little flat.
Okay.
I've met very few people where it's totally well-rounded.
Is this going to be like when you had me do disc and I'm just completely off the rails on one section, everything else is suffering?
Yeah, your fun's going to be up here, and it's like, well, he just has fun all the time. Flies by the seat of his pants. So we had talked about Wheel of Life before. Today we're focused in on fun. What I want people to do for the challenge for this week is what we talked about earlier about making an everyday interaction into something fun. So how can you be more mindful and present and make sure you're incorporating fun into your life, not forcing board games, right?
Right, thank you.
But looking at something that you're doing consistently in your life that you could now incorporate some fun into, because if anybody out there is like me, it isn't easy to do if your brain is wired to always be driven to achieve, right?
Right.
So that's my hope, is I want to hear from people as to what they've come up with that they're doing that's fun. If they're actually going to take a vacation for the first time, I want to hear that too. I want to hear where people are going on vacation. I love it. We need suggestions. But I want to hear that people are doing things they enjoy, practicing a new skill set. For me, it's guitar right now. I'm trying to make time. I learned to play guitar when I was little. My grandfather used to take me to lessons, and then after he passed away, I stopped playing. So now that my parents got me a guitar, I've picked it back up. I know now that Dad wanted me to play along with him, right? My focus for fun is beyond just family time, trying to also grow in my skill set and being able to play. So
yeah.
I'm excited to hear what other people are going to do for fun. All right, I'm going to close it up here. Any final words of wisdom before I close out the episode?
No words of wisdom. I just wanted to thank you for having me on as a guest. And in all, this isn't pandering because I'm a guest on your show. But thanks for what you do in our community.
No.
You give leadership a good name and a credible name and a reputable name, and it only helps the rest of us folks out here as well. So keep doing what you're doing. You're impacting lives and you're making a difference.
Well, feelings are mutual. I could say the same exact thing to you, Jay. And Jay and I are close. I obviously wanted him to be the first person on the podcast. We have a wolf pack people don't know about.
They will.
You're gonna meet the full wolf pack. I once was a lone wolf until I met you guys. But thank you so much for being here. Your willingness to take time out of your day and your busy schedule to be here and chat with me. I hope you've had fun.
Yes.
Keyword, right? For all the listeners, thank you. If you've lasted all the way through the episode, thank you so much for being with us. I hope that you have not only thought about how to incorporate fun into your personal life, but think about how you can incorporate it into your professional life as well, whether it's adding a little fun competition into the working environment or whatever it may be. We would love to hear feedback on this episode. Please, if you found value, share it with your friends, someone else that might enjoy. We would love for you to subscribe and get notifications for our next episode. So there's a new episode every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time, so you can look for the next one to drop. And until next time, keep branching out.